everybody. I am feeling a little ranty today, so you may get ranted at. How's everybody doing? I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. I'm very happy to see you. Everything is fine. So I was just telling Alex Vidal off the air, I'm having a little bit of a stressful day with my hardware setup. I'm literally I'm working a multiple computer setup at this point because I have like my personal computer, like everything runs out of my home office. So I have like my personal stuff, my stuff for Gorilla Pool, then I got the tools that I use for CoinGeek, and I like to keep them segregated, and all my stuff, like all my drivers decided they needed to be updated within the last hour. And then it was like, your camera's not connected to your browser. Then you probably need to give permissions. Then you get it. I'm just like, so we literally got up to like 30 seconds before air, and I'm like, loading driver. So it's been deep breath, let it out. So this week we are going to be talking about all kinds of delights, delectables, and all the good stuff. There's lots of goofy stuff going on globally, but in the blockchain space, per usual. My article this week, which I challenge you to read, it is currently my pinned post on X. I'm talking quite a bit about, the focus is Marc Andreessen. So for those of you who don't know Marc Andreessen, he's one of the key people for deploying the internet as we know it. If you are using Web 1 or Web 2, like you can thank Marc Andreessen for the way that all works. And for some of us, it's like, wow, what a cool thing. But really, if you understand like the nature of the data economy and the lizards and all of this stuff, like Marc is not a hero in this story. And anyways, he recently was on the Joe Rogan podcast, right? And he's talking about like, wow, people got debanked and all this stuff, like talking about, big government, big finance, and big tech all kind of at odds with each other, which is like a common theme lately. You've got Elon Musk, you got all these people that have sort of made their way from being these sort of middle of the road, sort of liberal Democrat types, and they're West Coasters, so it's important to be pretty liberal and whatever else, and then they've kind of transitioned to being Trumpers over the last year or a few years in certain cases. Marc Andreessen is that latest guy. He's donated money to Obama and donated money to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, things like this. He's like a classic Democrat donor, West Coast tech bro, liberal globalist type. Okay. Well, all of a sudden he's a Trumper, right? Like he's donating to the right pack and some of these other things, and talking about like, oh my God, the dangers of big tech and all this stuff, as if he is not intimately involved in the dangers of big tech. So it's pretty difficult to think of a big tech brand anywhere at all, ever, that does not have the fingers of Andreessen Horowitz or A16Z connected to it in some way. Both of which are firms he has. Control is probably the wrong word to use if we're being very, very technical, but like, he's Marc Andreessen, and the firm is Andreessen Horowitz, and A16Z is just a little spin-off fund from Andreessen Horowitz. So read my article. I talk quite a bit about why this is super disingenuous and why the problems of being debanked by big tech and big government and big whatever is nonsense. Yes, it's happening. Yes, there's a solution for it. He knows damn well what the solution is for it, and he is just like he's there pandering because bull market's about to heat up, and he wants the next round of guys that are like, hey, here's my pitch deck, Marc. Can you invest in my company, man? We're gonna change the world with a video game or a thing, and it's gonna be like, yeah, sure, I'll list it on some exchange I control, and it'll be pumped by influencers that I control, and all kinds of other nonsense. It's gonna be just one more round of like, hey, we saved the world, but actually they may put a bunch of money in their pockets and dumped on retail. It's infuriating. So anyways, read my article. It is a delightful day, actually. We're having a little bit of a cold snap here in South Florida, which means it's like in the 60s instead of in the 80s. And so it's been nice to go out for a walk in my sweatpants instead of my shorts. And that's been great. Our guest this week is not you. No, this is not an Ask Me Anything episode. And I'm not just going to rant the entire time that I'm here. We have a guest. And our guest is somebody who's been asked for a very, very long time. We have had lots of people saying, Kurt, you need to get this guest on. He really seems to understand the intersection of regulatory, tech, intellectual property, and blockchain, and how, not doing the crypto anarchist thing ultimately is going to be the way forward. Like, crypto anarchy was a good, probably an inevitable way that this was going to start, but ultimately, if any of this stuff is going to take off, it's got to get into the real world. And our guest is Reggie Middleton. So lots of you may recall him from his days of the Veritaseum launch and other things, but Reggie actually has been a really strong voice for professionalizing blockchain and bringing it into the real economy, which is something I've always cared about. Bringing Bitcoin and blockchain generically into the real economy is the only way that we are going to actually change the world. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of nerds, myself included, that are just, we're playing around, we're hacking, we're programming, or we're doing the DeFi thing. You got the bros who are, pseudo finance, roaring kitty types and all that. All that's fun. It's not necessarily a criticism of all of that, but ultimately, Reggie's one of those guys who has a lot to say about the way forward. And so I'm really excited to have him on in a couple of minutes. But before we do that, I have to thank our sponsors. We have Rock Wallet, who has been a sponsor on the show for a good amount of time. Thank you, Rock Wallet. If you want to hold or trade, they are a non-custodial wallet and do have a trading feature amongst their offering, which includes BTC, BCH, BSV, a couple of stable coins. I think the money stable coin probably coming soon. Ethereum and a couple other things. So Rock Wallet is a pretty good place to start if you're kind of new here, you're not sure about what's safe and what works and whatever. Rock Wallet's a pretty darn good solution for you, and something that I use personally. And I used them personally before they were a sponsor as well. Also, Champions TCG, the Champions team, they make the coolest game in the BSV ecosystem. Frankly, one of the coolest games, period. It's just a really good game, which is why they've seen a lot of success and are able to sponsor the show. So thank you to Champions TCG. They will be providing an entire deck of cards to the person who gives us the comment of the day. So at my whistle, while Alex Vidal, the greatest producer in 2024, I don't want to denigrate any of our previous producers. I've actually had a lot of good producers here, but Alex Vidal rocking the tunes, making all the difficult stuff happen in the background here. Also from South Florida, so Mr. Vidal is going to pull the strings and work the smoke machine and all this stuff to make sure that the ads play, and then we'll be back with Reggie in probably 30 seconds. So time yourselves, set your timers. In 30 seconds, we will be right back.
To contrarian badass Reggie Middleton.
Reggie walks in looking really cool. He's got a Google Glass on, and I'm like, man, that's cool. And
did he walk that?
Yeah, he walked like that. That's how you walk if you've got Google Glass on. Everyone walks real cool.
Reggie Middleton.
Reggie Middleton.
Reggie Middleton.
Reggie Middleton.
He doesn't mince his words. We're talking about Reggie Middleton.
So far ahead of everybody and so detailed, and then he started warning about Bear Stearns and Lehman. Well, he was so far ahead of the curve, I actually thought he was nuts.
He called the housing crash. He called the collapse of Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. He's been harping on the crisis in the Eurozone banking system for years now, so he's just the guy to talk to.
Or he told us how 0% interest rates were starving the banks, that it was designed to save. Now, at the time, you were the only analyst in the world to mention that it would starve the banks, and you've been proven correct.
Reggie Middleton, who nailed Facebook, by the way.
Not to be impolite, but what makes you so special that they all want to read your blog?
I can step on toes and be objective and offensively honest.
Mr. Middleton, how are you, sir?
I am well. And yourself?
I'm quite well. Man, your voice really comes through delightfully over the air. So good to
Thank you.
Good to hear it.
Everywhere.
Indeed. Yeah, man. I don't want to be the next guy to butter you up after that clip reel here, but solid stuff. Reggie, let's start with your Bitcoin story. My audience, you're new to the show. I'm guessing about half my audience is here simply to see you, and the other half probably isn't sure who you are. So can you give us a brief, like, what's your Bitcoin story? And I know your real story actually goes back quite a bit. You have quite a bit of success prior to Bitcoin and the blockchain economy as well. So if you could give us your bio, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Well, my Bitcoin specific story. I was an investor, entrepreneurial investor, invested my own money, eat your own dog food. Did a lot of heavy research because I believe in research. I really believe in knowing what's happening. And one of my clients, I would do research. I would take a position. I specialize in shorting banks when banks were collapsing, at least. And he asked me to take a look at Bitcoin in 2011. And I ignored him politely. And he asked me to look at it again in 2012. I'm like, this guy's persistent, but I don't know what Bitcoin is. I have a lot to do. 2013, they changed the rules of math. Up was down, loss was gain, and strong companies didn't really do very well.
Yes, sir.
So he asked me to take a look at Bitcoin again. I took a look at it. I actually researched the Bitcoin wiki, and my jaw dropped to hit the ground. Like, wow, this is really, really a good idea. I went to the white paper. I'm like, this is a good idea. So I'm like, most assuredly, I missed the boat because this is really a good idea. So I did a few months of due diligence, and you know the story from there. Not only did I not miss the boat, but nobody built the boat yet. I dropped the research and the advisory, and went down a rabbit hole. We created, right at the end of 2013, we created the first autonomous swap on the Bitcoin blockchain. I think a Uniswap in 2013. We filed patent applications, just as a to-do. At that time, there were very little tools to allow us to do what we wanted to do. So we had to make things up and solve problems along the way. We filed patent applications because I would presume, even though I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but my partners were very bright. If we had these problems, other people would have them too. It took 6.5 years to prosecute them. The first one was granted in December 2021, I believe. And we have 5 issued thus far, with many more pending. And they're what I would consider foundational technologies. Along the way, we built the peer-to-peer counterparty risk-free and credit risk-free swaps on the Bitcoin blockchain. We did something on Ethereum, which is much more advanced. And then we had a tussle with, your favorite,
everyone's favorite chairman. Yeah.
We didn't win that tussle. But since then, many patents were issued, and they're very, very foundational. I believe they underpin the entire industry.
So from the standpoint of like intellectual property and trying to do things right, I mean, you've been a controversial figure, but in the things where you've been controversial, I've consistently seen you standing up for, hey, we want to make things professionalized. We want to make things work in the real world. I'm just the kind of person that would file a patent in the first place is somebody who's already trying to sort of show the light to the world, that kind of thing. But same with, even like these financial instruments and these kind of like, Veritaseum and the stuff that went on there. It's one of the few attempts, anyways, that I've seen of people actually trying to create a piece of utility. I thought the same thing with like library token. They threw the book at Jeremy Kauffman over that whole thing, and it's like he was the one guy who built a platform where the token was actually a utility token. It was functioning. It was functioning as a business with a utility token, and he's one of 40,000 entities that have issued a token. Who gets in trouble? I'm thinking of it's got to be fewer than a dozen people that have actually been fined by the SEC and had the whole book thrown at them. And he was one of the only people who had actually done it well. And I think you are in a very similar situation in that your ideas are disruptive, And you should expect some pushback from that, but that's the kind of thing that's built into the business model, right? It's sort of like Uber saying, yeah, we're probably going to have to pay fines because we don't have our taxi token and whatever else, but ultimately we're going to create a net good. Regulators will catch up, et cetera, et cetera. Where did this start for you? Like being someone who saw it in 2013 and started to say, hey, we should be able to do non-custodial atomic swaps on Bitcoin and these kind of things. Like these are ideas that are a little bit passé today. I mean, there's a million dexes, and Uniswap is probably 5 years old at this point. And I think a lot of people understand how it works in a very basic area. They at least know how to use it. What was the initial inspiration? Was this based on your background in traditional finance and saying, hey, why don't we have this tool? Or what actually influenced that idea initially? And then maybe if you could lead me, and maybe you don't want to talk about it, but lead me into a little bit why Veritaseum, like the design of it and those sorts of things.
Okay. Well, my experience going into my foray into crypto was investment, buy-side style investment, basically using your own capital, not selling things to others. Financial engineering, I built stuff, and I'm a technology buff. Okay, and also valuation and global macro, how the world works, how much stuff is worth intrinsically, and how to put it together. So the reason why my jaw dropped when I read the Bitcoin wiki and then went on to the white paper, the first thing that occurred to me was this is counterparty free risk transactions, because the Bitcoin blockchain theoretically has yet to be hacked. And if it's truly programmable, even though it's simple Bitcoin script, but that's a lot more than you could do with a dollar bill. Programmable, had its own transportation rails, not controlled by any commercial or governmental entity. It's mana from heaven. And so by escrowing value into the chain and creating a set of instructions for exchange of value, you don't need banks. My slogan, or the company slogan, was well, money without banks, exchange without trades without exchanges, contracts without lawyers. And it still holds true today. It was literally the first thing that came to mind. The reason why we did the swap, which swapped right before the end of the year, like right a day or two before Christmas, was because if you take a look at it, ISDA, which stands for the International Swap Dealers Association Agreement, I think at that time was about 92 or 93 pages. The template, plain vanilla, is the agreement, which defines swaps. A swap is I give you some type of value, you give me another value in exchange. So we could swap US dollar value for Korean won. Okay. You have an intermediary, a bank, you have counterparty risk because you have to hope they pay you back, you have credit risk, etc. You put this value on the chain, you eliminate the counterparty risk. The business logic to the code went from 92 or 93 pages for the agreement to a little over 1 page, and significantly safer. It's as safe as the code and the blockchain itself.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, can't we just trust Standard & Poor's to do their job? They're so good at it.
Of course, you could trust them. Just like Mr. Johnson. There's this joke where Mr. Bill Collector, Acme Bill Collector, called Mr. Johnson and said, "When can we expect payment?" And what did Mr. Johnson say? You can expect payment whenever you want, but that's for when you get it, right? Very corny joke, but I'm a dad.
No,
so
it's good. It's important. I mean, and true, because the world, especially, I mean, even in the blockchain space, like you have this ideological view of how things could work or should work, and there's a very rosy picture to paint of Wall Street, and here's what they do for capitalism, and all these things, and it's the same thing with blockchain. It's, well, Bitcoin saves the world because of X, Y, and Z, and it's like, all right, well, Bitcoin almost hit $100,000 in the last couple of weeks. I'm like, man, we still got wars, we still got poverty, we still, like what has been fixed? Like they keep saying Bitcoin fixes this, and I'm sitting here saying, which part got fixed? Now, I'm not complaining about making good money. Like it fixed my portfolio just fine, but
well, it didn't fix your portfolio as well as it fixed the bonus pool of certain entities.
There you go.
I can tell you now, you guys will not like me if I just express my feelings on Bitcoin freely, because
that's good. Please do. No, this is important.
It's literally just code to me and the industry. And if you take a look at Bitcoin from a truly intrinsic perspective, okay, Bitcoin went from, I don't have my prices, but that's $60,000 about a year ago, right?
Yeah.
To almost 100,000 now. Was there a 50% increase in intrinsic value or functionality in Bitcoin?
No way. Hasn't been a practical change in the way BTC functions in many, many years.
Okay. And when that practical change came about, there's arguments to whether it was an actual improvement or not, but I'm not going to get into that.
Indeed.
The Bitcoin, what made me so interested in it is that it allowed you to circumvent the gatekeepers. Yep. The gatekeepers now own and control Bitcoin. Remember, 100%. It was supposed to, you can avoid the banks. Who is the largest purchaser of Bitcoin right now? The top three.
Probably BlackRock, MicroStrategy, and Vanguard, or whoever, whoever, some other fund whose name you may or may not know, but it's bankers.
So is this the decentralized, circumvent the bank, eliminate the middleman future that everybody thought? Now, no. It's inevitable, okay? Capital gatekeepers are going to control capital. There's no way around it. But the technology is growing a whole lot faster than Bitcoin price.
Yeah.
Okay. Arguably, the Federal Reserve is using the technology. If they're using anything like Kafka to do, their transactions, that's decentralized. Kafka has a consensus algorithm.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. It is everywhere now, and it's growing rapidly. So as to valuing things like Bitcoin, the price on CoinDesk or on Coinbase looks impressive. But if you go back to the last big paradigm shift, the second to the last one, you had cell phones and you had the internet. Which would you rather, to be able to buy an IP packet and hoard it, or to own the technology behind the internet itself?
No, exactly.
These IP packets went up like 15 or 100 times, and the internet went close from not being used to controlling all transactions of almost any value or information on the planet.
Yeah.
But everybody's looking at IP packets, trying to trade them. It's, eyes on the prize. That's what I tell everybody.
Yeah. So just for some clarity, I'm very much on the same page as you. I'm a big blocker. My reputation in the space has been telling the stories of the Bitcoin Civil War. I think the good guys lost. I think the bad guys completely took over Bitcoin. I don't know, between 2015 and 2017 is really when all the good guys were forced out of the main chain, the main project, all of that stuff. And truly, it's Larry Fink's vision is where we are now in the blockchain economy, which is disgusting. I mean, it's terrible. It is one of the largest squandered opportunities of at least my lifetime. Now, I don't think it's completely lost. We've lost a lot of battles, but ultimately the technology it's viral. You can't put it back in the bottle. And so I think with good ideas, truly disruptive ideas, and potentially, some good investment, there are people that have some money and some control, some power to help us push things in the right direction. And ultimately, a truly disruptive idea cannot be put back in the bottle. I'm curious, what do you think that looks like? Do you think it starts at, is it a disruptive application? Is it a disruptive protocol? Like how do you think the actual tinderbox gets lit here that claws some of this back or supersedes the current paradigm on people's understanding of blockchain? Like you said, that concept of the internet, everybody's still trading IP packets. And I agree. It's actually a really good analogy, because truly we're talking about network-wide value. Like almost nobody's valuing the power of the network and the distributed database. Everybody's interested in the asset, but they're missing the value of building decentralized business, truly. But I'm curious, what do you think that looks like when it ignites? What is everyone going to say? Like, damn it, I should have bought into that, should have invested in that, should have built that way instead.
Well, it's already ignited. and we have a nomenclature check. They're not interested in the asset. Because if they're interested in the asset, they would have invested into the intellectual property, the actual asset. Instead, they were more interested in the financialization. They bought into, and I'm a New York resident and native, so okay, and the largest industry in New York, you have a lot of them, but the largest one is finance. They bought into the financialization of the technology, so everybody must be a trader. You know, traders don't make a lot of money, and to my knowledge, okay.
And it's a
And I know a
terrible
little
way
bit
to
about
make money.
yeah, I know a little bit about finance, so
Yeah.
and they say we have made money. Compare a trader's risk-adjusted return over any 10-year period. It's usually negative. Now, Wall Street banks, you know, they go entire quarters, sometimes a year, without any loss. Perfect trading day, profit every day. But that's not really trading. That would be, if you pull the covers off, something that would sound like front running, because if you control both sides of the transaction, how can you lose? And that's it in a nutshell. Individuals, if you're not an investment bank with the capital and the rules and the lobbying power, you're not going to be able to match that. And even then, Wall Street banks can never be truly leaders in value creation or money. They collect crumbs when they carry cakes between bakeries. Now, you get a lot of crumbs, but you're never going to get a whole cake quickly. You're definitely not going to get a bakery. Real capital, real power, real wealth is the entity that controls a chain of bakeries. Not one bakery, not one cake, definitely not picking up the crumbs, but a chain of bakeries. Now, I'm not knocking Wall Street. I'm just calling it out for what it is as I understand it. So when you follow the Wall Street game, you are taking your eyes off of the prize. One of the most powerful entities, I think, in the entire business industry, sub-industry, that would be digital assets, blockchain, would probably be N-Chain. Because N-Chain has a lot of IP. A lot of it is angel hair and dust, in my opinion. But that's what happens when you get a lot of patents. And that angel hair and dust comes in very handy when you need angel hairs and dust. And some of those patents, I invite everybody to do a Google search or go on Google Patents and type in multi-party computing N-Chain. And you'll see a patent for multi-party computing, which is what almost every entity uses for cold storage. Now, I'm not going to go through a claims analysis, but let's suppose it holds true. Then BlackRock, with their $100 billion or whatever they have in Bitcoin, that they go through Coinbase and Fidelity. Almost everybody uses the same custodian, concentration risk, but you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, you got to trust the experts.
They are using patented technology if that patent is truly infringed. I'm not saying it is. I'm giving you hypotheticals. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. No financial advice. I could give you dad advice. That's the best I could do. And my kids don't even agree with that, to be truthful. So,
there you go.
But using that hypothetical, which may or may not be hypothetical, you can look it up yourself. It's all public. You can see where someone who's not lauded every day in the popular media, the pop media, or the rags like CoinGeek, etc., has a lot of control. And I don't know, you would know much more than I do. How many issued patents does N-Chain have now?
It depends how you calculate them, but it's hundreds or thousands, depending on how you calculate them.
You know, and
so there's lots of mirrored patents in different jurisdictions. So the criticism has been, oh, they only have about 600 patents that are unique, which is still like, that's a lot of IP, but okay.
And you know something, you only need one. So for people who don't know their business history, the reason why Google is what, 2.3 or 3.2 $trillion company was one patent, the PageRank patent, okay, which they don't even own, by the way, right? That was Stanford University, which gave them a paid up exclusive license. The reason why Amazon is a multi-trillion-dollar company is that one patent, the buy now patent, one click. The patent where you just click the once and buy.
Yeah.
Amazing you got a patent for that, but you know, first come, first serve, right? It is what it is.
Sure.
So, you know, it's good to have 20, 30, 100, thousands of patents, but it's the one patent that counts. And
Sure.
these are patents that control basically one industry, e-commerce or algorithm for search. Imagine if you had a patent that covered value transfer. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but
And
nobody looks at this. Nobody does an FTO analysis, freedom to operate, which means a lot of people have put in many, many billions of dollars, many billions, tens, even hundreds of billions of dollars into an industry and didn't bother to look if, anybody owned the stuff they were using.
Yeah.
So the next couple of years, I think there are going to be a lot of hurt feelings.
I agree. And it's funny because it's been my sort of long shot investment thesis on like BSV and the stuff related to it. Like one of the things that the N-Chain folks have said in the past is, well, if you build your stuff on BSV, consider it like open license to build using the patents. But if you violate them on Ethereum or anywhere else, like you should expect to be pursued at some point in the future. And that's the kind of thing that's said with a little bit of a chuckle and made with, because everybody's, you're making billions of dollars out here. Even lots of people accidentally making tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on your meme coins on Solana or whatever. And everybody thinks they're a genius. And when you were working at a car dealership or a restaurant or whatever, and all of a sudden you made an extra $100,000, or in some cases, I know people that have accidentally made a couple $1 million with, the right kind of luck. And it's very hard to explain to them how they are being short-sighted, or they have underestimated the real world, because they hacked the real world as far as they're concerned. They figured out how to get out of the rat race, at least a little bit, or they think they have. And I think it's fascinating how much that's written off. And I wonder, what do you think it looks like for the music to stop? If you were to just guess, do you think it makes sense to, send a letter to like the Ethereum Foundation, or like what? I think my problem conceptually is a little bit of a coordination problem. Like, who do you sue, basically? Who do you pursue in order to start to get that recompense back on these sorts of things? Like, you can say, well, Vitalik Buterin violated, these 5 patents or whatever, but is it too far out of the bottle, or can you go straight to Vitalik, or would you go to Ethereum Foundation, or would you go to various businesses that have been built upon and are because it's probably violated by all of these entities? Like, what does it even look like from a coordination standpoint? Is this like class action? I'm guessing you have quite a bit more experience than me anyway, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I loathe litigation, and as wonderful as the legal profession and lawyers are, I love to love you lawyers, but I don't. Individually, there's some nice guys, but lawsuits are not my cup of tea. Unfortunately, large, powerful entities don't respond well to niceties, manners, and requests. So
Indeed,
things have to be done the hard way, because the easy way is just too easy. I can't really talk about litigation or lawsuits. You can look up patent litigation. I have entities that have a history of it, but I guess I could say, one of my entities sued one of the largest in the industry, and same thing with stablecoin, but that was due to a lack of willingness to sit down and talk.
Yeah,
I'm trying to use a politically correct word, because the proper word would be ignorance, but that has a negative connotation. So I don't want to come across as trying to insult anybody.
Yeah.
But not knowing or
naivete,
naivete couched in the belief that you're knowledgeable. Okay. Or the youthful idiot using the Russian propaganda nomenclature. So a lot of people say I'm anti-patent, and they say patents, they slow down innovation, they prevent innovation. They say that because they heard somebody else say that. That's it. They don't know anything about patents. They know very little about business and financial economic history. They're just repeating something. And most people who say, well, you should open source your patents. Do you know who says that? The people who don't own the patents, they won't open source. I think you should open source your bank account and post it, your account number and your passwords right on the internet. But most people won't do it because they earn the capital. If you take a look at the fastest growing industries in this country, they're usually rife with patents. Look at the mobile phone industry, which I think is growing faster than anything. Okay. Samsung and Apple, number one and number two. Samsung's probably number one worldwide. Apple's definitely number one in the US and has the largest margins, does this volume. It doesn't really matter. You're talking trillions either way. Okay. They have massive patent portfolios, tens of thousands of patents, and they stay in court. Okay. Very rarely do they actually have wins. They just trade back and forth. And everything along the food chain. So Apple and Microsoft, what's the other one? Samsung have large patent pools, and then they license patents from everybody. Microsoft in the beginning made more money from their patents than they did from the actual cell phones. Of course, they don't even make them anymore. Microsoft made more money from their patents, Gmail, etc., than Google made from Android. Then you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, camera technology, screen technology, hinge technology, foldable phones, flexible screens, etc. All these patents, if the open source guys were correct, the mobile phone industry, smartphone industry would go nowhere. But it grows faster than anything. And each year it grows even faster for decades. The reason is there's an incentive to innovate and to invest because you get to own it. Why innovate and invest if someone just comes around and takes your idea because they have more money? It's not just that you use biopharma. You could use any industry that's patent heavy and you have extreme growth. It's impossible for this industry to avoid it. And if you look at who won the patents, there's a lot of patents. N-Chain with either hundreds of thousands, Bank of America, you have IBM, Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the little guys who always get steamrolled over unless they're either lucky or they work very, very hard and have talented counsel and partners.
Indeed. And it's funny. I don't think it's a coincidence that, on the one hand, everybody says, oh, and N-Chain's fake and Craig Wright's a fraud and all this stuff. Everything's just a scam. It's all a shell game. But at the same time, you have some of the, and not just some, you have a pretty large contingent of the richest and most powerful people in the world. You get your Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and all these guys came together to form this crypto open patent alliance. And their only target has been Craig. Like, how do we drag Craig through the mud forever until he dies? And, but at the same time, like, oh, nobody's actually worried about him. Nobody takes him seriously. It's like, well, I'll tell you what, Jack Dorsey isn't writing checks to hire, 12 lawyers from the most expensive firm in London to mess around with somebody that isn't a threat. And, those two things don't exist in the same universe, but it persists that, everything's fine. Like Jack Dorsey's got Block and his Lightning Network incubator and all this other stuff that he's working on. And,
actually.
Well, that's the funny thing too. They claim to be, we're all crypto anarchists and everything we're going to do is for everybody. But at the same time, like they have their own pools of patents. And hey, if you're going to end up using this technology that's open source today, look like, well, why are you guys filing patents furiously too on how to control these things? And so there's this dirty secret, and I don't think this is new. This is actually really common for your sort of viper, vulture capitalist types and all these people to be like, I'm gonna wear a t-shirt and jeans. I'm gonna pretend to be this cool guy. This is Jack Dorsey's whole vibe is I'm a Buddhist or whatever, and I haven't showered in a week, and and I'm just like you. And it's like, no, you're one of the richest men in the world. And you're complicit in some of the worst censorship of freedom of speech and financial sovereignty and all these things. Like, he is a villain by any real metric. And then he gets the praise of whatever, the mainstream controlled opposition. And I think that I think that's super apparent. And it's just shocking to me how many people feel like, oh yeah, Jack is the everyman and BTC is the real Bitcoin, and just all the drama that goes into this like weird social engineering campaign. But yeah, I feel really refreshed hearing your take on the value of these things, because this, I think, is the long game, and it's what I've been it's what I'm here for, essentially, is, hey, how do we bring this past this nascent nonsense phase and get to doing real business, because the real business is yet to come, and I'm pretty excited for it. So what do you think next steps? Where do you see, I don't want to turn this all into predictions, but you're kind of a powerful prediction guy, so you've brought it on yourself a little bit.
I don't make predictions. I make observations, and I run simple math. It's not even complex math. Usually addition or subtraction. When it gets fancy, we go to multiplication and division. So next is the technology is adopted. And while everybody's worried about trading stocks, they're going to miss the fact that the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange is going to run on the blockchain or a ledger. Not necessarily a blockchain, who knows, but it's going to run on the ledger. And what they're going to be trading on that ledger will be tokenized assets, and the technology. NFTs, people are sooner or later going to actually take a look at the NFT specs and realize, wow, this is real special. You see, NFTs were popularized by people who didn't care or know about the technology, and they were trading JPEGs and etc. But NFTs are things that are just simply non-fungible and refer to a data source through a transmission mechanism. So that's a fancy way of saying a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once you put contracts on a ledger, they will be NFTs by definition, unless the contracts are exactly the same, which is unusual because you'd have to have the same party, same counterparty, same signatures, same terms. Okay. If there's any difference, they will be non-fungible, not interchangeable. NFTs are powerful as contracts. Think of Netflix as a serialized NFT. Okay. And then think of being able to not just deliver a movie, but upscale the services. So now you could deliver lunch with Beyonce. Just instead of cost you $6.99 a month, it'll cost you $2 or $3 million. There are people who buy it. Okay.
Yep. For sure.
Interview with Trump, the deed to an office park in, what's the name of that part of Miami? I can't think of it now. Westwood?
Brickell, Wynwood? Yeah.
Wynwood.
Wynwood. Yeah.
Yeah. Or hey, the window cleaning contract to 50% of Brickell. Okay. All these things could be encapsulated into an NFT and then sold. You get embedded. We're coming up with the community is coming up with silver rounds, 1 ounce silver rounds that will have QR code embedded, right? You scan that and you can transfer assets through the actual silver round. You could separate the ownership of those assets from the round, combine it, slick stuff that everybody can understand. This is how NFT should have been introduced, but somehow they were introduced as Bored Ape JPEGs.
Bored Apes.
Not knocking the guys, but everybody just totally forgoes the actual use of the technology. Everybody's adopting it, and I've taken a look at some of the stuff in N-Chain, and I'm saying, this stuff really looks like it's underpinning. I gave an example of multi-party computing. Everybody look it up, go through the claims, read carefully. You don't need to be a super genius, but it's not always easy. Use AI, use ChatGPT or something to help you out. Caution, because it makes a lot of mistakes, but still a spell check. So, just check your work. Okay.
For sure. Let's take a few comments from the crowd. We got some interesting ones, so let's bring them up. We got about 15 minutes left. Make building with Bitcoin as simple as Wix drag and drop. LOL. True. I think when things get that easy, mom and pop start building smart contracts for their own business, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Now, there's an inverse relationship between ease of use and whether it works or not. But
sure,
that has been broken. They have drag and drop, code, Python code that is really functional.
For sure. actually a buddy of mine, Zach, who's a longtime friend of the show and someone who's been extra popular because he had a medical event that has made him a little bit famous. But Zach built the Magic DApp, which is essentially that. They are code snippets, and you can piece them together, see if it compiles, see if it transacts, and whatever. So it allows you, it's like smart contract in a box for UTXO blockchains, which is itself just a very cool idea. Yeah. For, hey, I want to launch an NFT. Really a lot what you're saying. I want to launch a real financial instrument, or I want to launch a Pixel Fox or whatever. Like all of those are fine, but it's up to you. Here's the tools, and anyone that can click and type can make a smart contract. And so it's coming. So thanks for the comment, New York engineer. It's check out Magic DApp or Alpha DApp, which is the underlying technology there. Let's take another question, Mr. Vidal. I really want to know where on the family tree Mr. Middleton is in relation to James Earl Jones. you do have that voice, man. It's solid.
I yell at my kids a lot, so I get hoarse. My kids are grown. I've been telling dad jokes. My kids are grown, so you still yell at them, but they're just grown. They yell back now.
Yeah, it's getting more dangerous by the day. I got 3 little ones myself, and I'm starting to do the same thing. I listened to some of my interview stuff from 5 years ago. I was like, well, my voice has changed in the last few. So there it is. Let's take another one. When does Reggie think the patents start to matter? Up to now, most people seem to ignore.
Well, that's really what most people do. The only thing that matters is what the jury and the judge does. Okay, if you go the litigation route, which you shouldn't. There are many ways to do it. I can't talk about a lot of it. But, my companies exercised their patent rights. Again, we're very powerful entities represented by the most powerful law firms in the country. I had a death in my team, unexpected. And remind me to walk through that story if you have time. And
sure.
So we withdrew the suit without prejudice. And then this very powerful entity tried to invalidate the patents at the patent office with something called an IPR. It's an inter partes review, basically saying the patent was not novel. There's lots of prior art, blah, blah, blah. They do. And they used a law firm with 499 patent professionals working for it, attorneys, engineers, etc.
Yeah.
They lost horribly, actually. It strengthens the patent because
you'll love to hear it. Yeah.
This is not, again, legal advice. It strengthens the patent in that a powerful entity with a very powerful law firm tried to invalidate it, and they weren't even given the opportunity to invalidate it. The 3-judge panel said that you haven't shown the likelihood of being able to damage even a single claim, which is very, very strong. I'm a lone individual. It's just me now because of, litigation with powerful entities from who. So it is not impossible to make this stuff work. And patents matter right now, but most of the things that happen aren't, on CoinDesk.
Right.
For sure. CoinDesk has never ran a positive article on me. So it's definitely not on CoinDesk. But if you're able to see behind the scenes, you see a lot going on, an awful lot.
Yeah.
If you look at who's filing the most patents now, they are the big banks and the big technology companies, and they're really going at it. But the key is to look at cited by, and you get to see whose patents you have to cite in order just to file your application. My first patent has 137 sites, and it's a who's who in Silicon Valley and Wall Street. Big banks. Big finance companies, big technology companies, all name brand. And this is held by, a small group or individual. And I'm not the only one. So as bigger money comes in, and it's coming in droves now, it's just that everybody's paying attention to ETFs and how much Bitcoin is bought. The real key is to look at the implementation of technology. I gave you an example of the Federal Reserve. I'm not saying that they're infringing on anybody's patent, but the Fed now roll out. is massive, and it is value transfer. It's
Yep.
really a messaging system, but the messaging system in and of itself is value transfer. Peek behind the covers and you'll see.
Yep. No, that's a good hint. I think some of the audience will get it and do some digging. But no, it's such an important point, because you're right. And FedNow is just one of many. There's hundreds. I think last I checked, there was something like 200 central bank funded research projects into CBDCs and high volume value transfer, that kind of, basically digital cash, but actual CBDC digital cash using distributed ledger technology. And anybody that thinks that, like, oh no, like either A, that'll never work, or B, that, well, if it works, it's just nobody's gonna use it or whatever. It's like, sorry, you don't understand.
Ask your opinion.
Right? Like, do we get to vote on this? Like, no, of course not. Nothing. You don't get to vote on anything important. Just FYI. But
it'd be just as optional as taxes.
Precisely. Well, and it's really all they got to do is say, hey, starting in 2030, your taxes have to be paid like this. Done, right? That's everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. The second largest economy in the world has already adopted. They were the first major economy to adopt it, China. So
sure. Well, exactly. So what a pilot program. Like, well, how many people are using it? Like, how about billions? So it's a crazy. Let's lighten it up a little bit. I think there's a lot to chew on here. In doing a little bit of research, I discovered you're a Olympic level martial artist, and as a martial arts enthusiast and aficionado myself, I have to ask, what's your background? What's your style? Tell me that story a little bit.
I learned in Jido Kwan, which is a hard level Taekwondo. Back in, I was 13 when I started, so I'm 57 now. I'm an old man.
Looking good.
Well, thank you. Whatever year was 13, it's probably like 1981, 82, whatever it was.
Sure.
And I got into it. I'm a natural, and it was good to keep in shape. And I started winning a lot. I was New York State champion at age 16 in middleweight and heavyweight, full contact. My instructor out of Long Island happened to have been nominated as the U.S. Olympic head coach for the 88 Olympics, which is exhibition for Taekwondo. And our team, very, very good. I ended up going to college and ended up chasing girls more than practicing. So I didn't go to the Olympics, but my sparring partner in DC went, and he got a silver medal. And my instructor came to beat me up because he was like, if you would have went, we'd have got gold. I'm like, yeah, well,
Yeah. Those girls, though.
Grandma had a mustache, grandpa. Yeah,
that's great. So I like to ask too, whenever I have somebody on the show for the first time, what is the right way to dress a hot dog? What would you put on a hot dog if you had all the power and money in the world?
I don't know. Organic ketchup. Who knows? I don't know.
You tell a lot about a person how they dress a hot dog. So. Reggie, any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave anybody with? Like I asked all the questions here, but is there something that you wish people would consider or know about you, or know about some big idea out there that maybe they're missing?
Well, I was playing with ChatGPT. I was discussing, I told you my lawyer, who is also a friend, passed away in the middle of a lawsuit. A lot of things have happened. I've been sued a lot by a lot of entities, alleging a lot of nasty things. And it got to the point where I'm like, enough is enough. I'm like, does this happen to anybody? So the other day, I put in the ChatGPT. I'm an ardent user of LLMs, okay?
Sure.
But mine is specially trained for, XYZ tasks. It's not the stuff you normally just pull out and then type in. And I said, what is the probability of all of these things happening to me by chance without a common thread? And I listed it. I uploaded thousands and thousands of pages of legal documents and studies and research. And it said roughly 1 in 50 billion. No, million. I'm sorry, with an M, not a B. I'm sorry.
1 in 50 million. All right.
Then I came on and said, well, be as conservative as possible without leaving the realms of reality. Okay. And then it said, at best, we can chop that in half and make it 1 in 25 million. And there you go. What you're going to see is the battle of the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Who don't want to be rendered irrelevant. And traditionally, they don't do that through innovation. They do it through lobbying and force. And it's evident. If you go to the very community, they can show you. They've done a lot. And they've been very, very supportive of me. If you look at a lot of bad things that was said, I've been defrauded, I've been a fraud, and X and this, and took that.
Oh, yeah.
And fiduciary
You're the worst guy in the universe, depending who you ask. Yeah.
Go talk to the individuals who were allegedly defrauded and see what they have to say. Extremely supportive. I'm very proud to have had, a community like that. I think that the true power of distributed communities, I would say the internet, but the internet is not what it used to be. When I first got into the internet in 1991, 92, dial-up modems, 14.4 baud, etc. You were able to go on the internet and publish freely. You had a web page, you had true autonomy. That lasted for about 15 years, maybe 20 years. And then all activity started to focus and congeal into apps. And once they've congealed into apps, you're now back under the control of a gatekeeper. Say the wrong thing, you delete it. You don't accept the right payment, you do XYZ. Autonomy and sovereignty is now gone. Web3, basically, not distributed ledger, but digital asset technology, the ability to script it, can bring that back. And it can bring it back where you're your own sovereign entity. Financially, from an information perspective, any value exchange. That is coming up, and with that, you should theoretically have more of a survival of the fittest style of capitalism, where that 12-year-old girl in Sri Lanka can compete successfully against that, 55-year-old or 45-year-old trader in Goldman Sachs in Wall Street. That's my goal, and you're coming dangerously close to that if not everybody's taken out by, the powerful gatekeepers. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not going to name them, so I'm not saying I'm anti-bank, anti.
No, for sure. Yeah. But I think it's funny. I hear that reservation. The way you've said it a few times, like you're trying to protect yourself. Like it's one of those things. But like, what are the odds all this happens by chance? And I think we all know, right? The answer is almost none of this is actually happening by chance. And when you challenge powerful people, especially on maintaining their seat of power, how do you actually do that? This is why Satoshi Nakamoto was a pseudonym and all these other things. Like this stuff has to be, hey, here's an idea, don't kill me. And it's such a sad state of affairs because we have this rosy picture of, oh, we're free, especially as Americans. They're like, yeah, we just had an election, all these things, and it's like, come on now. Like we know for a fact, if you really, really challenge power all the way, if you're legitimately challenging power, you should expect to be challenged back in ways that you can imagine, and probably some ways you can't imagine. But
challenge back is a politically correct way of saying it. And polite.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Reggie, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you go because we're here at the top of the hour, but you have been a delightful guest. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon somewhere. But where can we keep in touch with you? What would you prefer?
Okay, well, at Reggie Middleton on X is probably where I'm most prevalent. You can always go to the YouTube channel. You can get that from at the X profile. But I also invite everybody to go to the VeriDAO channels. On X is at DAOVeri, so at DAO_Veri. And they've done research that I can't do, and they are able to speak on things that I can't. And your jaw will drop if you see what this community has done. Literally.
Cool.
I mean, it will drop. So I invite everybody to go take a look at it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Cheers.
All right, everybody. So we should bust out the meme of the week for a moment. I'm gonna stretch out my vocal cords a little bit, and we'll pass around comment of the day stuff from the Champions TCG folks. So let it rip.
And now it's time for the meme of the week.
All right, your total's $49.24. Go ahead and tap when you're ready.
Oh, I have cash.
I feel like I liked that more than I should have. So, everybody, Mr. Vidal, let's queue up our comment of the day of the week. I was Yes, sir. New York engineer, make building with Bitcoin as simple as Wix drag and drop. Thank you for watching, and please contact the Real CoinGeek at Real CoinGeek account on X. You will need a Handcash wallet, and then we will send you your gift from Champions TCG. Thank you, Champions. You have been a delightful sponsor. Also, everybody, as we wrap up here, we are nearing the end of the year, which means we are starting to near the holiday schedule. We are going to have maybe one more live show for the year, and then we're going to have some clip showy stuff and some, hey, remember 2024? It's going to be a good time. So, everybody, I had a really fun show today, but I think in a lot of ways, I'm aside from keeping it a little bit light where possible, I think a lot of what was discussed is actually pretty dark. And I think we are still amid a pretty dark time in the history of blockchain, where real innovation is stifled, it is held back, it is pushed down. They want you to feel weak. And ultimately, we're trying to make you powerful, also in a way that doesn't get you, disappeared. And so, everybody, what helps is your viewership. And this is a little bit why I use my real face and my real name, and I post every day, because I want you to notice, everybody, that if something changes, if all of a sudden my candor switches, or if I disappear, then I want people immediately to say, they're the problem. And that's part of being authentic, being yourself all the way. Because if you are yourself all the way, if you live out loud, if you know who you are, what you believe, and why you believe it, and you're willing to defend it, you're going to create an army by default. All of a sudden, your people, your tribe, your team, they will coalesce around you, and you become more powerful as a group. So we absolutely need each other. And this is why I always say, we must be good to each other. Right there. This is true. Alex Vidal is the man behind the curtain. I love that it's spelled with a K. This Kurt doesn't actually exist. Kurt is too good to be true. The funny thing is, Joey has actually met me in person. So he knows I'm real. In fact, I think he's met my whole family except for my latest child, who is a little too young. So again, everybody, be good to each other. It's really, really important, because if we're not good to each other, none of it matters. The rest of it is nonsense if we are not here to be good to each other, create peace and prosperity in the world. So I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr. I'm going to wrap. I'm going to go on with the rest of my day, and we're going to make something happen. Also, real quick, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's all kinds of transactions on the BSV network lately, like tens of millions a day. It's a little proof of concept going on with something I'm pretty excited to talk about. I'm not going to give you a soon. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but there's some really cool stuff going on in the background. And I'm pretty excited about how that's all going to play out. So everybody, be good to each other. I will see you next week. Goodbye.